This is the Out of Time Film Podcast, where your hosts Tom and John discuss everything from blockbuster films to TV and games like there's no tomorrow.
Hello and welcome back to the Out of Time Film Podcast. My name is Tom and as always, I'm joined by my co-host John. This week we're talking about Suzume.
I cannot wait to talk about this film that we've been meaning to talk about forever, but
yes,
it's finally here.
I'm so excited. And for our 3-year anniversary, incredible. We'll talk a bit more about that at the end. But yeah, Suzume, we're going to be doing full spoilers. So for anyone who hasn't seen it, you have been warned. So Suzume, briefly explain the plot for those who don't know.
Okay. A modern action-adventure road story where a 17-year-old girl named Suzume helps a mysterious young man close doors from the other side that are releasing disasters all over Japan.
Fantastic. So this is Makoto Shinkai's film coming off the back of Weathering With You and Your Name. I haven't seen Weathering With You, but Your Name is an absolute banger and you've seen both of them. So What did you think of Suzume?
It was just wonderful. It was just a wonderful experience to watch in the cinema. And I just loved that you were just completely lost in the film. It was just a wonderful experience. Like, I really loved the story. It's not better than Your Name, but it is one of the best films I've seen. It was just a wonderful film. Yeah. What about you?
Yeah, I agree. It's just a testament to how good this filmmaker is, that he manages to take these really wild concepts that when I started the film, I wasn't sure would work. Very early in the film, Sota becomes a chair. And I was like, oh, it kind of felt to me a bit like Pixar's Soul when the main character becomes a cat and, we get wacky shenanigans where there's a cat. And I wasn't sure that it would work. You know, like, I think Soul does it well, and I thought that Suzume did it really well. They really took advantage of some of those more bizarre concepts. It wasn't as grounded as something like Your Name. And Your Name isn't a grounded film, but this one was really out there, and it built this universe of these closers and this whole other side and this world beyond. And I thought that was really, really interesting to explore.
Yeah, I'm just looking at IMDb with like the trivia. It says that Shinkai cites the story of this one called Super Frog Saves Tokyo. It's the novel Kafka on the Shore, and the anime film Kiki's Delivery Service as the main inspiration.
I tell you what, you can feel that, especially in the first half of the movie. Suzume, when she leaves and she's going from place to place, from door to door, and makes these connections, and people out of their own kindness take her in, whether it be when she works for a little bit at the restaurant or at the bar. She works with people and, you know, she kind of lends her services and she meets people. And like you said on the way home when we saw it, you were like, I could have watched a whole movie of just that. And I agree, because it very much was a similar vibe as Kiki's Delivery Service, where it is these very precious moments and precious memories and people coming together through their kindness. I thought that was so spectacular to watch.
Yeah, and I have been reading Kafka on the Shore, which is such a surreal book. I know what inspiration it's getting from, apart from really weird stuff in the book.
I'm correct in assuming that's the one with Colonel Sanders, right?
Yeah.
Good. You told me about that.
It's taken a lot of inspiration from this surreal travel type experience. Like in this movie, it's like coming of age, really. You're trying to understand yourself with these mysterious doors. And I loved the way they showed that these doors are very terrifying. You know, like that worm that comes out the door. Man, I did not expect that at all. Like, I didn't watch a lot of the trailers because I didn't want it to be spoiled, but that was just like unexpected. Like, whoa. Like at the beginning of the film, she saw it in her school and it was just like, okay, this is where we're going. And I really like the direction it took from there, because I thought, as you said, you were worried that it was going to be goofy, you know, like what they're going to do with the chair. But I thought it was really serious in terms of like, it was balancing the comedy. I really liked the comedy in the film. I thought it was just not too forced. It was just like a normal humor. It was just like very funny.
Yeah, all the humor felt rooted in the characters, and it felt like it was ways to kind of endear you to them. There's a whole sequence where Suzume has to take care of this woman's kids, and the kids just being ridiculous and energetic, and in that you just get a really nice like character bonding scene between Suzume and Sota, even though Sota's a chair and they're pretending that he's some sort of AI robot. Like, that was really well done, and you're right, it doesn't go over being too goofy, which
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of films, especially animation films, do. There is always that danger that when you're kind of making any film that leans on comedy, it can become too much and therefore the emotions don't work. But I think the emotions do really work. And
Yeah.
I'm with you. I watched the trailer when it came out, but I haven't watched it since, and I haven't really been looking for trailers and you know, like information. So, you know,
Yeah.
I'm with you. I was expecting something more like Your Name. And so at the beginning, when they pretty quickly ditched the school, I was like, oh, this is going to be very different. And it was. But it has very kind of similar themes as Your Name. A huge
Yeah.
part of the film tackles similar ideas of memory.
Yeah, and the idea of places that have been abandoned or,
Yeah.
memory that hasn't been explored again, that you
Mm.
have to find that memory. And that's what I really liked throughout the film, because it was her trying to find out what were these doors, but the doors had meanings as well. Like, this is an entire different world that, she's been there before, but it's very familiar to her. And I thought it was just great to, Shota is the closer who is trying to shut these doors. And if they don't shut the doors, this worm will create this catastrophic earthquake. And what I really liked about it is that we're exploring Shota as a character, and then you get to see this character dynamic. And it was really interesting because Shota was just a chair throughout the film, and you get to see that dynamic between them. It was just very emotional in terms of like they had to have each other throughout the film, and it was just that emotional pull to explore these characters throughout the film, and it just felt really nice. It didn't felt like forced at all. You just get to explore that, and I really like that as well.
Yeah, I mean, like, turning him into a chair is a stroke of genius because, in many ways, he has to therefore lean on her because he can't go to the place he needs to go as a chair. But in also ways, she has to lean on him, not only in the fact that as a chair, sometimes she has to stand on him, but also the fact that she doesn't know anything about this closing. He's the one with all the information. And so,
Yeah.
therefore, that kind of forcing them together and having them rely on each other like that is so great. And the added level of the doors, as you say, being these places where memory kind of comes alive and comes back. Like, memory is such a huge part of Suzume's character and what drives her. There's a lot in the film about the past. How does that influence the people we become? And how does memory impact all of that? What I love so
Yeah.
much about this was that Suzume, right at the end, gets to tell her younger self that it's going to be all right. Something that she's needed to hear. And that's such an emotional moment for her. It's truly beautiful how the film
Truly.
handles how experience shapes us and how Suzume as a person takes control of that in her own narrative. But the doors, all abandoned places, they're filled with memories of the past and the people and places that have been lost. Through her journey, Suzume meets people in the present and gets to be a part of their stories, even briefly. And these people connect to the memories of the forgotten places in a way that carries a lot of that melancholy. Like the woman who used to go to the abandoned school, or the woman who used to go to the fun fair with her family. All these things kind of permeate the narrative, telling a story about the way that memory impacts us and how we keep it with us. Again, I feel like it's very similar to Your Name and how the timelines in that movie work and how memory becomes such an ingrained part of that. I won't spoil it, but that is a huge part of what makes that movie work so well in its emotions. And I feel like you get the exact same thing here.
Yeah, and this is like, the character arc for her, because she has to find about herself throughout the doors, but also the chair was a memory of her mother, which passed away, I think, when she was 4. Yeah. And the chair wasn't really used that much. It's just broken. But if you look at it a different way, it's like as you grow older, you see this piece of family. You look at it and then you're rediscovering those memories. And I thought that was just a really different visual story. She's trying to reconnect those memories and rediscovering herself. And I just loved the animation with that as well. I thought it was just very nostalgic in a way, because it just reminded me of Ghibli films with the score as well. It just felt like very nostalgic, and it's such a chaotic film. And I just loved everything about it. Like, you get to see different aspects of life. And as you said, like, you get to meet different people. And it's like you're rediscovering that part of history, really.
Yeah, so many of the supernatural moments of the film are really chaotic, but it balances them really
Yeah.
well with the scale and that kind of tips, like the scale kind of as they progress throughout Japan. We start literally, there's quite a few times when we see the map and we start right at the bottom of the map and we go right up to the top through Tokyo. And I think the biggest visual sequences you get whenever the worm shows up, they keep on ramping up, and I feel like that works really nicely. And the animation shows just this grand scale in such a nice way. But also the animation really comes down to the level of the characters. Whenever there's a quiet moment or a moment that carries a lot of like emotional weight, it's never kind of compensating for any of those elements. The balance is so so spot on. Whenever it
Yeah.
comes to the pacing of these action set pieces, it works really, really well. To the point where, like, the structure of the narrative was very, I don't know exactly where things are placed, but it felt like that moment where Shota becomes a keystone as a chair and the Tokyo door is closed. I felt like that was the end of the movie, but it might have even been the midpoint. Like, I'm not quite sure. The movie really, really stretched everything out, and almost you get two different halves, where the first half is like a road trip adventure closing all these doors, and the second half, well, that actually becomes more like a singular, less episodic kind of adventure, if that makes sense. I don't know
Yes,
if you
I
get what
know.
I'm trying
I
to
know
say.
what you mean. I know what you mean. It reminds me of 1917 in a way because it's that effect. You get to see these two characters, and then one character goes away or disappears or dies. You're with this character, and it feels empty. I think that's what the film is trying to do because you get to experience the first half of the film, and then the second half of the film is entirely different, which is really cool. Like that's what Your Name was like because at the beginning of the first half of the film, you're just completely lost in the body swapping chaos between Mitsuma and Taki. And then it completely changes in the second half. And I really like that in this film because, it's just like, it can be very hard to like, you got this one singular story and you feel like, how do I explore something else without changing that mood of the story? So like, it's just really interesting how that tone shifted towards like, it was like very upbeat, it was just this guy trying to close doors as a chair, but then it's just like completely empty in the second half. She's trying to find him and herself. It's kind of poetic in a way of like, she did find something in the first half, but she didn't know what it is. But then in the second half, it's all about that journey. And there was a really good character development between, the relationship between, the aunt and Suzume as well. I thought that was a
Yeah.
really interesting dynamic because it reminded me a lot about teenage upbringing, like how you're going to deal with your son or daughter. Like they could be going somewhere else, and it's that rebellious phase in the film that the aunt was thinking.
Yeah, well, like in the first half, the Aunt Tamaki, she's like, oh, she's being in this rebellious phase, and it's treated almost comedically where Suzume keeps on hanging up and it being like, she's gonna get you one day. And then in the second half, they have a conversation that's genuinely like, I've cared for you ever since you were a kid. In many ways, I feel like I've given up my own youth for you, and this is how you're repaying me. And it actually hits so much harder than in the first half. And I feel like that is such a brilliant thing that Shinkai does. Again, haven't seen Weathering with You, but with Your Name and with Suzume, it's so well done how the first half, it's all fun and games, but it's setting up things that are going to be incredibly important for later on. In these films, he's setting up things that become the emotional moments. Like, as you say, the chair, it's funny watching Shota run around as a chair, but the chair becomes an incredible, integral part of what the film is like about and the emotional core of it all. And things like all the little small details that kind of come together. It's an incredibly powerful storytelling device. We talked about, for our 2-year special last year, we did Lord of the Rings trilogy. It's the same thing. At the beginning, they spend so much time building up the Shire and what is important to these characters so that we can show what it's like when that's taken away. We can really feel it. And it's not an easy thing to do. It's very easy just to say it, but it shows so much skill to be able to do that. And if I had one nitpick for this film, it would be, I felt like the pacing was a bit off. It felt like it went on for ages and they really stretched it out. But at the end of the day, they didn't waste any time. As long as I felt it was, and as I say, I felt like it had 2 climaxes and it felt a little bit off. Who cares? It really, really crafted everything to the letter. And I'm sure that rewatching this film, some of those moments will really stand out. Like at the beginning, the reason why Shota gets turned into a chair is because he is in Suzume's house and she's trying to mend his wound. And later on, you find out that her mum was a nurse, and in many ways, she wants to kind of follow in her mum's footsteps, something that carries so much more weight. Her mum was literally helping people, and that is why she died. We find out that that was a casualty of the 2011 tsunami. And a lot of these things that are really small details at the beginning really come to the forefront, and they really do tug on your heartstrings.
Yeah, that was really emotional. Like it was you as an audience trying to piece all together, like what really happened with Suzume's mother and how she she got lost. And yeah, it was just really emotional at the end where, oh, there was a great moment I really liked. It was when Suzume gets Shota back, and it was just very emotional. Like, she gave it her all just to bring him back, and I thought it was great. But one other moment was when, as you said earlier, when Suzume was talking to her younger self. It was all about that belief, everything's going to be okay. What was the quote that I said I really liked? I'm your tomorrow. I thought that was a really interesting quote. That's something to look through throughout the film, because it's like, how is she going to do something on her own? And reinforcing with her idea of becoming a nurse is a really interesting aspect to look through. And I thought that was really emotional. And Radwimps. Can we just talk about Radwimps?
Oh my god. Wizards. Truly,
Wizards.
truly wizards.
I've been listening to the soundtrack all day yesterday.
Yeah.
Man.
Just fantastic. They don't put a foot wrong, and they really go that extra mile in, again, tugging on your heartstrings. And I think that climax where Suzume brings Shota back is just fantastic, because you can feel that emotion and the way that she does give up everything. Emotionally, she lays it all on the table, and then we get to see through Shota's eyes, which I thought was just like such a really great way of reframing the film and seeing, as a chair, he sees all these small moments where we don't know if he was watching or not. And they make that hit so well. And, again, like that second half, they really kind of dig deep into the burdens that each character bears. Every character has one, and that's almost like a vital part of the drama between them all, whether Shota having the burden of being a closer and dealing with his family legacy, or Tamaki and the burden of looking after Suzume after her mother's death, or even Suzume herself and the burden of her choices and promises that culminates in the world coming close to Armageddon. Like, it's all Suzume's choices and the things that she feels are missing in her life that leads to her taking the keystone and freeing the first worm, which is the reason why she meets Shota. But then again, that choice and the promise that she makes to fix it becomes the thing that has her emotional resolution. Every character in the film has to deal with a burden, and how they handle it's a huge part of what makes those characters so fantastic and feel so great. And one of the things that I loved was in the end credits, we just got pictures and little moments of them going back to their home, and we get them revisiting all the locations. There was a nice one where Tamaki and Suzume are on the train, and Suzume's asleep, and she misses Mount Fuji going past the window again.
Yeah.
And like they go back to the bar, and they're singing karaoke, and they reunite with the girl who's delivering oranges, and she spills all of her oranges again. Really, really fun and nice ways to kind of bring the characters together and to life. And I feel like those realistic characters, through many things, through the comedy and through the way that they're all explored, is what makes the movie resonate so much.
Yeah. I felt like, I know it's not a comfort film, but it did feel like, it was just like with the animation, it just felt like you were going somewhere on a journey. And this film, as I said, like as I left the cinema, I felt like I'm watching that film forever in a good way. Like you were just on a journey somewhere else. And it's like one of those films that feel like you've been watching a long time. And that's a good feeling, you've just been somewhere else, and it felt like 2 hours. And sometimes 2 hours can be nothing, but this, it just felt like you were just on a journey and you had to explain someone what you've just been on. I just love the creativity into this. Like, there was no manga or anything that went into it, because usually you get a lot of anime that is kind of developed from a series or a manga, but from a film, that's impressive, because you just got a lot of drawings to do, or lots of ideas, and it's just really, really cool. You can definitely see the creativity into this film, and I love it. The storytelling was just excellent.
Yeah, I agree. I really think that it just kind of ticked all the boxes. And while I don't feel the same as you, I don't feel like for me the length of the movie was a little bit of a negative, but still it's very small things. I really think that this movie is something special. And if Makoto Shinkai keeps on making movies like this, then we really have a really, really great filmography on its way.
Yeah.
That's going to be fantastic to see unfold. And I don't know what the next thing is going to be, but I'm so ready for it.
Let me see what he's done. So he's done, well, he's mostly a writer in
really?
a lot of things, but he is. So Your Name was based on, his novel. It was definitely based on his novel that he wrote, which I gave to you. Yeah, he wrote. Wow.
Oh wait, he wrote that too?
Yeah, he wrote that entire
wow.
novel. Yeah.
I didn't even realize.
And he written The Garden of Words, which I heard that was great. 5 centimeters per second. He has a really interesting career.
This guy is a wizard, and I'm just ready to see everything that he wants to make, because the two that I've seen so far have been so good, and everyone says that Weathering with You is great too, so here we go. I'm ready.
There's a really interesting quote that you said, like, the thing about getting rejected is that you reflect and think and analyze about why you got turned down. You'll learn a lot more from stories about getting rejected than stories about becoming happy. That's why I prefer those stories.
Yeah, that's interesting. That feels very much in the spirit of what we see in Suzume. The idea of failure and of hopelessness kind of feels like a big part of the narrative, whether it be Shota kind of becoming the keystone and taking that sacrifice because, you know, they don't have the strength to close the gates, or even like Suzume and her guilt about opening everything at the beginning. Like that kind of becomes a part of what every character has to overcome. Or even in the words that Suzume and her aunt say to each other when they're at their lowest point, like that all kind of becomes part of that feeling of hopelessness.
Yeah, I'm looking at his IMDb. He says that he's a Japanese director, writer, producer, animator, editor, cinematographer, voice actor,
What?
manga artist, and a former graphic designer.
That is too much talent. Like, I'm sorry, but can we have some of that, please? Can you share it with the people?
Please give it to
give
please. Oh man, I love this film. I really do.
Me too. What are you gonna give it out of 10?
I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10.
Yeah, me too.
Please go see it if you can, because it's not available. Well, I think it's available now.
It's not going to be at cinemas anymore, but it will be, hopefully, you know, Blu-ray streaming, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it might be on Crunchyroll if it's available sometime.
Well, it's a Crunchyroll film, isn't it? At the beginning of the film, it showed the Crunchyroll logo. So it probably will be.
Yeah, this film was great.
Yeah,
please do watch it. It's just a wonderful film.
And I wouldn't be surprised if this shows up in our top 10s when we do the best films of 2023. I can't really see it not being in mine. There'd have to be some real bangers, but then again, we've had a pretty good year.
Bangers. Yeah,
exactly. Thank you everybody for listening to our 3-year special. Oh my, here we are, 3 years.
Wow.
Just want to take a moment before we wrap up just to say thank you, everyone. Thank you for listening, and thank you for kind of, you know, persisting. Year 2 was pretty depressing. We were trying to kind of get our style kind of right, and I feel like year 3 has been the payoff of that. So many videos have done really well, and we've had people talking and engaging, and that has been so great. Like the Andor video, when the Andor video hit 1,000 views for the first time in over a year, I was so happy, because we've tried really hard to make this the best that it can be, you know, whether it be editing or whether it be the kind of projects that we choose. You know, we did the 2023 Pinocchio. We did the live action Pinocchio just, you know, to kind of like be part of that conversation and to kind of like do these new things. And, you know, even when branching out with Suzume, which is, I think, maybe the first non-English language movie that we've done on the pod. I might be wrong about that, but I think it is. Like that's just really exciting, and doing all these new things and looking back at old stuff. It's been a hell of a year, and thank you everybody for joining us on that ride. And if you're new, because I know that this video will bring in a new kind of audience, hello. I hope you enjoyed our talking about it.
Yeah, what do I have to say? You said everything. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for listening. I thoroughly enjoyed doing that Andor episode, and I hope you enjoyed that one, because that was so much fun to talk about.
It really was.
I remember we were just shouting, "One way out."
One way out, yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Amazing. I just love that one. That is my favorite episode to do so far. But this one as well, it was great to talk about Suzume. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, we really have done some great stuff. And we've got some really cool stuff coming in year 4 as well. So, you know, we've got another anime. We've got How Do You Live, which is a Studio Ghibli movie, a Miyazaki movie. That's going to be so much fun. We also have 3 episodes on Doctor Who, which I am so excited for. We're going to do the 50th anniversary. We're going to do the 60th anniversary. We're going to talk about the best episodes of New Who. That's going to be great. And of course, we've just got so much fun stuff coming into the next year, and I really can't wait. And of course, on top of all of that, I will keep on making those shorts and those TikToks. And that has really been another great thing that we've done this year. It's been so amazing to see images with our commentary. That has been so much fun, and then that's a different way to get people involved. I've really enjoyed. We've had our most viewed video ever, and that's been a short, and that was so great. And you see people connecting with it and commenting and liking, and all of that stuff really does mean the world. And of course, I gotta say thank you as always to Jones-Meyer for the theme, Ronan Phillips for vocals, and Zain Afzal for the fantastic thumbnails, because all of that, like that stuff is just
awesome.
like a huge part of the podcast now. And like the thumbnails always have been, the theme's a newer thing, but I love it. It's so great to see. Thank you everybody for listening. If you enjoyed it and you're listening on YouTube, you can give us a like and subscribe if you want to see more. And if you are on Spotify, you can follow us and give us a 5-star review if you think we're worthy. Send us an email, tell us your thoughts on Suzume, on anime, on Makoto Shinkai and all of his incredible talents. Tell us what you thought about the movie and any of that kind of stuff. We'll answer it right here on the podcast at alsteinfilmpod@gmail.com. And you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at alsteinfilmpod. And next week is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which is another animated film. Fantastic. I love animation. It is cinema.
Cinema, yes, indeed.
Hey
Such a
John.
good film.
Hey John. Guess
Yeah.
what? Do you know which animated character is really cool? I'm a Gundai.
No, you cannot keep bringing I'm a Gundai.
Listen, it's our 3-year special. I had to do it. I'm just gonna confuse everyone.
I'm a Gundai. Okay. I thought you were about to say something cool.
Something profound, something with a lot of weight. No, it's I'm a Gundai, of course.
I'm a Gundai, yes. Anyway, thank you for listening. I thoroughly enjoyed doing this podcast. It's just great. It's so much fun.
You say that like you're about to leave.
No, I've
really
about
enjoyed
to leave.
3 years of the podcast, and I must announce that I'm
No.
leaving to become a carpenter. I don't know.
A carpenter.
A carpenter.
Wow. The carpenter, yes.
Like Jesus.
Oh, Jesus. No.
Jesus was a carpenter.
Yeah. But anyway, thank you for listening. Take what you're given.
Give nothing back.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.